So I think I've said this before, possibly in the video about why turnkey rental properties might be great for new investors. But I want to drive home one of the points I said in there, which was one reason that turnkeys can be so good for new investors, if not one of the biggest reasons, is because when all of the hard stuff is done for you, the rehab, the tenant placement, finding the distressed properties, identifying markets and neighborhoods, all of that complicated stuff, it's advanced stuff. So if you're a brand new investor and you have no idea what you're doing, some people have that natural knack to do it, but most of us don't. And so instead of taking on the whole thing as your first investment and trying to learn it all at the same time, you can buy turnkey rental properties, and all of the complicated stuff is done for you. So at that point, you only really have to learn the most basic, foundational, fundamental things about really any investing strategy, but certainly a buy and hold strategy, which the two big things for me are learning how to run numbers. How do the numbers work? What are you looking at when you see all the numbers? And how to do due diligence. You've got to learn to verify, and this is absolutely for any strategy, sort of the numbers, but especially due diligence, is you've got to verify everything. There's very little about a property that you can't verify, and you should never be taking anyone's word for anything. You should be verifying any investment property that you pursue on your own. So turnkeys really allow you to do that because, again, the complicated stuff, the rehabbing, the negotiations, the tenant placement, the landlording, everything's done for you. But along those lines, one thing that is it's related, but a little bit of an offset, is turnkeys, even if it's not your ultimate desired strategy. Let's say you want to become a flipper or do apartment complexes or whatever, the bigger stuff, the more complicated stuff. Again, turnkeys allow you to learn the most basic things that will contribute to those bigger projects later. But what they also do is, even if your goal is to get to those and you want to use maybe turnkeys to learn the basic stuff, here is an example of someone who just actually sent this to me a couple days ago, his experience in buying turnkey rental properties and what they allowed him to do as far as branching and other strategies. So I'm just going to read it, the exact message. He said, I've bought 6 or 7 turnkey properties. By doing that, and this was in one particular state, by doing that, I've made more contacts where I've bought through the contacts, still rehabbed houses with tenants in place, and now I'm buying from a seller using seller financing. I'm getting 9 houses from him with more to come. So what that's saying, I mean, that's huge because, yeah, you start with turnkeys, which turnkeys are great. They may not be the absolute highest returns you can find, but there's a trade-off because you can do it with as little time and everything. But aside from them being the ticket to learning the basics of any buy and hold rental property strategy, you can also use them to expand into other areas. So he expanded into seller financing, to finding his own contractors. He was able to branch out of specific turnkey world and into other things through the contacts he made, through the things that he learned. This is all coming from later discussion we kept having after he sent me this. It's a foot in the door. Again, even if you want to do a much more complicated strategy, flipping, whatever, cool. But don't rule out turnkeys, because if you start with turnkeys, it doesn't mean you're stuck with them forever. But it can be a great entrance into real estate investing. And I know for me, turnkeys being more or less my first investment, give or take a couple other failed opportunities. Since I've gotten into turnkeys, they have absolutely opened up the door for who I meet, for the projects I have access to, for my own knowledge about investing, more about running numbers, more about due diligence, all of that. So just a PSA saying, there are a lot of reasons turnkeys might be a great option if you're just starting out in the real estate investing industry.